Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about our polar test for tomorrow. We're going to go through number 1, which is graphing each point and then naming the point in 4 different ways. So for the first one, when you graph these points, you want to start by looking at your angle. And in this case, we're going 300 degrees. So just like our unit circle, we're going to go around the circle 300 degrees. So if I went around the circle 300 degrees, that will put me right here on this line. However, I want to go out -3. So if I go out -3, that's actually going to be in the opposite direction, directly opposite, and I'm going to go over -3 to right here. So that's going to be now my point graphed, -3, 300. Now writing it 4 different ways requires me to do the other possibility with -3, and then when I have 2 3's that are positive, so going +3. The way that I'm going to find the first one with -3 is to start by looking for the coterminal angle to 300 degrees. Well, in order to find the coterminal angle for 300 degrees, I'm going to have to take 360 subtracted from that 300. Okay, so when I do that, 300 minus 360 is going to give me -60. So my first coterminal angle is 60 degrees, and that's coterminal. Okay? Now, in order to find the 120 degrees, I am going to take 300, and if I added 180 to that, that's going to put me at 460. Okay? Now, 480. Now, 480 is, of course, more than one rotation. So if I subtract out of 360 degrees, I wind up at 120. So looking at if that is equivalent, if I started here and went around 120 degrees, would that put me at this point? And the answer is yes. So you know that you have found another point to name -3, 300. Now you want to find the coterminal angle to 120 degrees, so you're going to take 120 and subtract 360 to find the coterminal angle, and that will give you -240. Okay? All right, now let's take a look at the next one. In the next one, I am graphing the point -1, 5 pi over 4. Okay? Well, 5 pi over 4, and I realize that I did not graph this, so if I want to graph 5 pi over 4, that angle is actually going to be, and remember, we count around our circle by pi over 12s. So what's going to reduce if I make this denominator 12? What's that going to make the 5? And if I multiply by 5, that's going to make it actually 20 pi over 12. Or excuse me, 3, that'll make it 15 pi over 12. So I'm going to count around from here. I'm going to count 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Now, it is this line, but it's -1 again, so I'm actually going to go in the opposite direction, -1, and that's going to put the point right here. Okay? Now again, I'm going to go through the same process, but now I'm going to do it with radians. So I'm going to first find the coterminal angle to 5 pi over 4, and I'm going to keep the -1 there. So 5 pi over 4, I'm going to subtract from that 2 pi. And 5 pi over 4 minus 2 pi, if I get the same denominator as 4, I multiply 4 times 2, and that makes this 8. So 5 minus 8 is -3 pi over 4. So the coterminal angle to 5 pi over 4 is -3 pi over 4. Now for the positive ones, I'm going to take my original angle and I'm going to add 180 degrees. So when I do that, if I look at 5 pi over 4, adding 180 degrees plus 180, or a pi, that's going to give me 4 pi over 4. Okay? Now 4 pi over 4 is actually 9 pi over 4, and 9 pi over 4 is 1/4 pi more than 2 pi. Because remember, 2 pi in this case would be 8 pi over 4. So if I subtract out now again 2 pi, it's going to leave me with my pi over 4. So now I have pi over 4, and now I find the coterminal angle to pi over 4 by subtracting 2 pi. So pi minus 8 pi over 4 would give me -7 pi over 4. For the last one, 2 comma 5 pi over 6, again, you can kind of think to yourself, if I make the denominator 12, okay, because remember I count around this circle by pi over 12, so this is 1 pi over 12, 2 pi over 12, 3 pi over 12, etc. So I'd have to multiply this number by 2, so that gives me 10 pi over 12. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, there's my 10 pi over 12, and in this case that's 5 pi over 6. So then I'm going to go out 2, so if I go 1, 2, that's going to put me right here. Oop, let me try that again. Using a different pen than I usually do. So again, that's going to be right here. Okay. All right. Now, again, I'm going to go through the same process, find the coterminal angle to 5 pi over 6. The way I find the coterminal angle is by subtracting 2 pi. That gives me 7 pi over 6. Then I'm going to add 185 pi over 6. That's going to give me 11 pi over 6. And then finding the coterminal angle to 11 pi over 6 means I subtract 2 pi, and I get negative pi over 6. Okay, so those are my other possibilities.